PodAskew Podcast is a proud member of the Big Heads Media Podcast Network.
To the PodAskew Podcast. I am CJ, and with me, as always, is my hetero life mate Rico. What's up, man?
What's up, guys?
Dude, we got a pretty cool guest coming on tonight.
I know. We finally got Frank Sinatra's ghost. I'm so happy. I've been waiting for years to talk to him and have him, tell me how good of a follower I've been. Right? Frank Sinatra's ghost? Yeah.
Well, if that's the case, then I'm out of here. I'll talk to you next week. But
that's all right. We don't need you. We'll just croon together. And...
Yeah.
No,
it'll be the first time someone actually blew a supernatural ghost. It'll be interesting to watch you blow Frank Sinatra.
Through Skype, no less.
Through Skype, yeah. No, through the conversation with OC from last week, about the documentary, we were able to get the man who shot the documentary. Mike May's joining us.
That's right. May the force be with us.
Oh dear God. But yeah, he's coming on, so I'm sure we'll talk a little more about the documentary. But it'll be interesting to hear from the other side. Nothing against OC or his version of it, but I'd like to hear, from the documentarian side of it, and then
the technical aspect.
Not just that, but where his inspiration came from. Because we've looked at his IMDb, and as far as I can tell, this is the only doc he's got on his resume. So. Right. What inspired him to finally do a documentary, or at least one that's maybe going to get a credit on IMDb, right. So I'd be curious to talk to him about all those things. And then he's shot on a ton of stuff, so it'd be real fun to talk to him about some of those experiences as well. So,
absolutely.
It'll be a good conversation. So we'll have Mike on in a little bit, and we'll be ready to go. All right. So Mike May, director, creator, producer of the Octopus Caveman documentary, is with us. How you doing, Mike?
Good, guys. Thank you so much for having me. Really appreciate it.
No, thank you. First, there's a lot of things that I personally want to thank you for. Number one, obviously, just coming on the show with us, but also for spotlighting our friend. Because we've known OC, and he said we can call him OC, so I can't call him by his first name. It's not a thing. It's just...
It's weird, for sure.
But, we've known OC for a minute now, and he's been a great friend. He's been on a couple of episodes prior to the documentary, so it's good to see a guy that we know to be very talented get this much love and exposure. So we're very happy about that. So thank you, I think, on both our behalves for that. Right, Rico?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's the good kind of exposure that OC needs, not whatever else he gets exposed to.
Yeah.
I agree. I absolutely agree.
Look, man, we're looking at your IMDb, and there's so much that we could talk to you about, but we probably should start with the documentary. And so, what inspired you to we've seen the documentary, or at least the portion that's up on YouTube. So we are both conscious of what you talked about, how you came across the tweet. But what made you, even after reading that, say, you know what, I need to shoot this? What took you to that level?
Obviously, unfortunately, I've been suspended from Twitter for something that I said that didn't seem like something that would be a suspendable offense. But
you and me both, brother.
Oh, good. I'm glad I'm not the Lone Ranger. But what happened was, I was on it, and I used to do the TV show Orville, and someone that had followed me because of Orville had a connection to OC. And so I saw the tweet of Anthony saying that he, was depressed and he was going to give his paintings away. And I was like, wow, that's a really, it was a very heavy tweet.
Sure.
And, so, like you do when you, whether you're, no matter what social media place you go, specifically on Twitter, you tend to do a lot of deep dive on what people's responses were. So I saw his paintings and I thought, wow, these paintings are really cool, man. This guy, and selfishly, at first I was like, wow, I'd really like to have one, you're going to come to the Valley, I live in LA here. And then I thought to myself, what the fuck, what is wrong with you? That's like so shallow. And, I've been through my depression. I've lost my mom and my dad. I went through a really bad divorce, which Anthony had too.
Yep.
When we started conversing, we had a lot in common in a lot of respects. And because of that, I felt where he was coming from the depression element. So I had sent him a text or a tweet, and I said, I get it, man. Look, your work's really cool. Obviously a lot of people think you're fantastic. Please don't do anything stupid. And then as I started to think about it, I thought, what a great story. This guy's giving his paintings away. And he was thinking about committing suicide, but he didn't want his paintings to end up in the trash, because obviously there's the emotional connection and the effort that it took to paint them. And anybody that's an artist, and I'm a filmmaker, and, things that I do, I can look at stuff that I do. I can be changing the channels and see something that I did come up and remember the exact moment that I shot it.
Sure.
And remember the elements surrounding it, the weather, the people that were with me, and all these nuances. And so that being said, I knew from looking at Anthony's stuff, and seeing what he had written about him, that he probably felt the same way. So I just thought it was a great story, to tell. And I wasn't doing anything. I was in a lull. I wasn't working. And, so I didn't know how, what, or why. I've done documentaries before for other people. I'd never done one myself from start to finish. And so I sent him a DM, and I said, hey, man, your work is really cool. And the guy that just died recently, Christo, he was an artist that did these amazing big sort of art events. And I don't know how much you're familiar with him, but one of them that he did was here in LA. When you leave the town that I'm in, Santa Clarita, and you go up, it's called the Grapevine. Christo had put these umbrellas up, these yellow umbrellas dotting along the highway, the 5, the Golden State Freeway, heading towards Bakersfield. And it was basically this art exhibition. It was this, big thing. And I kind of equated it to that, the fact that he was putting his paintings around the city, but yet people had this opportunity to actually get them and hold on to them. And I thought it was such a generous thing. And the sort of byproduct was seeing how people were just all over it, like people were driving from, 100 miles away to get these paintings, and it became this sort of treasure hunt thing. And so that being said, when I finally sent him a message, I said, I think what you're doing is like equal to like what Christo has done. But people are, going to get these paintings. And what do you think about doing a documentary about it? And, and I didn't have a plan in terms of what I thought the documentary would be, but let me talk to him first about it. So he got back to me right away and said, yeah, let's do it. And I said, cool, well, give me a call. And so he called me the next day. And, Anthony and I joke about it. OC and I joke about it. Like, if he was some kind of a douchebag, sort of pretentious guy, I probably wouldn't have gotten involved, because I got enough of that in my career as a, professional filmmaker. And likewise with me, he thought that if I was some, jackass, pretentious, oh, I'm a filmmaker, whatever. But it turns out neither of us weren't, at least I don't think so, on my part. And we had a lot in common in music and what we liked. I play guitar, and he plays guitar, among other instruments, piano and stuff. So,
sure.
So I went down to his house, and he lives, like I said, in this trailer park in Garden Grove, which is really, it's an interesting part of town, because it's kind of on the outskirts of Orange County and right between Orange County and LA. And it's a trailer park. It's a very humble place, but it's nice and it's clean. And so I drove down there, and I just was going to meet with him and chat, but literally OC is such he speaks so eloquently, and he hits these notes on things that are so deep. And I was just there with my iPhone that thankfully shoots, 1080 HD. So I said, as he started talking, I said, wait a minute. I said, look, I got to tell you, this stuff that you're saying is so amazing, and it's so organic right now, which is a word I hate to use, but it fits. I said, I'm just going to start rolling. And I literally shot like 5 hours of footage on our first day of hanging out together, which, included us drinking a few beers together and some other things. And he just opened up. And everything that he talked about, every little element that he talked about, you could see it in the movie. Yeah. He always, buttoned each little element with this really great sort of button, and it was like he could be like the thing that always struck me every time I see the film is when he talks about death and how death is like a snowflake and it affects everyone differently, but it's very singular to you, which I know all too well. And I just thought, fuck, this guy's fucking brilliant, man. So as I said, we shot all that stuff that first day, and which essentially documented his whole life and everything. And he was more than generous and really expressing so much of his whole life. That was heartbreaking, as I said, on many levels, with being a kid in a foster home, child in a foster home. And he kind of glazed over his divorce. It was something that he didn't really want to get into and offend anybody, which I said, yeah, that's cool. But as we went on, we decided let's go out and leave paintings around the city and see who gets them. And, then I would, bum rush them and see what the response was to the painting. And as you can see, it was so organic, and there was no plan. And what was so beautiful about it was how everyone that found a painting, they treasured it, and they knew about it, and it was something that was so special to them. And nobody got it and was like, I really didn't like it. So everybody that got a painting was like, wow, this is the one that I wanted, or this one meant a lot to me. And just the journey of everyone that went out to get the paintings, those are stories in themselves. And that's what created the documentary, and that's what made it so beautiful.
Well, so
I got to tell you, being bum rushed with OC was a whole lot more different with me when I was in the room with him.
Oh, really?
Well, that's a whole other story.
That is a whole other story. You brought up a couple things immediately, Mike, that make me want to talk about. And the first one, you mentioned Christo. The irony, if you will, is so the interview we did with OC about this is being released in like 7 hours. It's done. It's ready to go. It's just waiting till our normal release time. And while we were interviewing him is when I got the alert that Christo died on CNN.
Wow.
So it's really interesting to use that comparison. And it's not wrong, but it's an interesting comparison for you to choose because I got that alert during the interview with him. So it's all interesting. And then the other thing you talked about, he glossed over the divorce a little bit, but he shared this on the episode too, and it's something I thought you would find interesting. About the thing with the ring, Rico. Do you remember him telling us last week?
Yeah, I know about the ring. Yeah.
Oh, you know about his.
Yeah.
Okay, he shared that story with us on the air last week, so that was just crazy that's right where that painting was. But anyway,
yeah.
In all honesty, there's a lot of the OC conversation that I just kind of forgot because
it went all over the place.
we all know, like, having a conversation with OC is deep, it's meaningful, it's poignant, it's funny, and at the same time, you're like, words are just leaping our fucking faces, and we're like, wait, what the fuck did I say? And a lot of it is on him because he relaxes everybody because he's quote unquote outrageous, but he's really not that outrageous. But he's honest in every aspect of his life. He's honest.
Totally.
So when he says, I mean, there's a bit where he tells us a story about how he has a farting penis, or he had a farting penis.
It was a rather funny story, and it went on for like 20 minutes of us discussing about his farting penis.
It was the rosebud of fucking PodAskew. We just kept referencing it. And so once that came out, then it was like, it was not even really a competition. It's just like, let's just try and be as on as OC, at least for me. I mean, CJ and I have a very kind of well understanding thing where it's like, he's the director, the technical aspect of this, and I'm the angry fucking Lou Costello.
Yeah, and you're right, but he's right. OC, like you said, Mike, speaks so eloquently that it makes you want to bring your game up. So yeah, it was a good thing. You mentioned you shot the first couple hours on your iPhone. Did that end up being your primary shooting source, or did
it did? And I also used a Canon, or was it Panasonic? I can't remember which one. It's a Vixia, which is a high definition camera. It's sort of a, I don't even know if prosumer is the right word to use, but it shot 1080 and it has a longer lens. So it enabled me to get some shots because I really wanted to look, in a perfect world, I'd be shooting them with, Airflex Alexas and things like that.
Right.
lenses from Panavision and things like that. But, it was so spontaneous, that I didn't really have a chance, and I didn't want to, the thing is when you show up in like public places with a camera and a big lens and stuff, it, all of a sudden it kind of takes you out of everything. And as I said, I mean, iPhones that can shoot 1080, I was just like, all right, fuck it, I'll just do it on this. And
yeah.
And funny enough, and not having a sound crew, the sound get on iPhones is actually quite amazing. And, so whenever I needed help with sound wise, I cut it on Final Cut 10. And whenever sound wise, I was able to pull up the sound quite a bit. I mean, Final Cut 10, I was obviously able to edit it. I did some colored, fixing, and some of it's not as polished as I want it to be, but it's so spontaneously original that I like it for that.
Yeah, but that rawness, Mike, and I'm sorry to interrupt you, but that rawness actually gives it more of a touch too. Like you almost, because sometimes I watch a documentary and I still enjoy this subject matter and what's being discussed, and I learn things and whatever, but you feel disconnected. I felt like with this, you felt like you were definitely on the journey with both of you guys, and that came, I think, from the using the iPhone and not having the long big lens and the fancy camera, So I think that actually plays to the documentary working as well as it does. If that makes sense.
If I can add, it's kind of like Gonzo filmmaking. If Hunter S. Thompson would make a documentary, he would do it about OC, and he would also be doing more than OC. So I kind of felt like it was that aspect of, because Gonzo journalism, as much as it's a tribute to Hunter S. Thompson, and we think of it as just doing drugs, it's just instead of writing about the story, you are becoming inside the story. So that's sort of what you did. Was I could film this guy and just not say anything, or I could be a part of it. You're not just a documentarian for this movie. You're the second cast member. You are the second lead.
Yeah.
You were just as integral of getting this, of ultimately, let's really be honest, helping OC kind of deal with his depression. That's really what this movie is about. It's his art is one thing, and he's a great guy, but it's all about a social awareness of how depression can be fucking awful. Because he is a very jovial, eloquent guy. And then there's that scene towards the end where he had a great fucking day. He said, this is one of the best days of my life, or this is the best day of my life. And then he fucking just, with alcohol, that's the other underlying surface of anxiety and depression.
And some of the stuff that happened on Twitter, because he shared that with us too. There were some things that didn't make the documentary that occurred that day also on Twitter that he shared with us. But yeah, he goes from the highest of highs to the lowest of lows in what looked to be in a matter of hours, so.
Yeah. Well, and I've talked to him about this because obviously in the midst of it, when you get look, everyone's like a keyboard warrior now, where they can hide behind their computer and talk shit and, say things that they would never say to you in person. And, I'm 6 feet and 230 pounds, and I've gotten a lot of fights in my time. Not that I want to do that now at my age or anything, but people certainly think twice about saying things to you when you have a physical stature that's intimidating, needless to say. And Anthony's a very unintimidating guy, but he's visceral in when he wants to be and be, he can cut to the core, but he's also extremely sensitive. And so there was a couple of people that said some stuff, and frankly, again, back to the movie, was the fact that some gallery owner told him his art wasn't good enough to be in a gallery, which was his motivation. He used it to motivate himself. And frankly, his art was much better in these latter years than those original pieces that he was trying to get in a gallery. So, it's that thing in life where you use things to motivate you, even if they hurt you, and he did that. And, again, with him specifically in terms of where he was at mentally, and, I didn't know him, so I was trying to be as delicate as I could with getting this stuff out of him. And the thing that was so beautiful about him was that even I didn't have to be delicate, but in being delicate and really having a genuine friendship with him, it just made him so much more open and so much more. I mean, he shared things that were just, like I said, he was so profound and so prophetic on so many things that I just thought, fuck, this guy's fucking amazing, man.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
And when he did have the breakdown, it was like 11 o'clock and I was sitting here watching the news and all of a sudden he called and he'll call me at 11 o'clock at night. I'm a night owl, especially now with all this shit. And, I'm like, hey dude, what's up? And he's like, I'm fucking, and he was going off and I was like, oh, fuck me. I go, all right. And then thankfully my daughter was sitting nearby since we didn't roll on this. And, she rolled, everyone's got their phone with them. And, it's just, the thing I can't get over with this project is just how it just spontaneously all fit together. And even though there's a linear element to it, it all worked linearly, if that's a word, linearly.
Works for us.
And yeah. And I mean, I raced down to his house. I mean, he lives, it's not like it's close where he lives. And I was fucking flying down the 405, getting to his neighborhood. And I had my son with me at that point.
Right.
And I said, look, man, just roll when we get into the mobile home place, just start rolling. And sure enough, I fucking pull up and he's burning the painting right there. I go, oh, fuck me. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've told him, please don't do that. People love your work.
Right.
People love your work, and
I think it's important to add that as you watch the documentary, it does kind of, because it is linear in the sense that it's not even so much a documentary. It's sort of a film with a plot of, there's this guy who's depressed. He's working on his depression. Everything's good. And then it's sad. Every movie has to have a depressing part to overcome. They have to have the big bad that they overcome. So in retrospect, it's when I was watching it, because I've seen it once all the way through, and then I was watching clips of it later. It almost does kind of seem, and this is not an insult in any way. I know it's not true. It almost kind of seemed a little planned in that aspect.
I know. And I like, that's one of the things that when I go, fuck, this thing is like, it's exactly a story arc. Cause I'm a writer. I've written a bunch of scripts that have been greenlit and redlit. And that is your path as a writer, is to create that arc and to have that place during the story where things fall apart and then there's a reconciliation. Right. And I don't even really know what to say, man.
I know. I'm sure, like, on your end, it's probably like a really mixed fucking message, because you're like, as a friend and as someone who cares about OC, you're like, I really don't want him to be burning his paintings and to be an asshole to himself. I want him to overcome this because I give a fuck. But at the same time, you're like, this is some really good footage. This is gonna be great.
It's gold footage, yeah.
Well, let me tell you that this is a true story about the end of the film. Also, is the fact that we had a completely separate ending in mind, which was I wanted, I had, because I'm a camera guy, in my sort of basic sort of filmmaking way. And I think of shots, and I think of, I've done so many majestic shots, whether they're the end of the film or the beginning of the film. So my idea for the end of the film was him putting a painting out somewhere, similar to what happens in the film at the very end when he goes back to Huntington Beach to leave that film. We have him sitting on the park bench. But what I was going to do was have him put a painting down somewhere and push him tight on the painting and hold it and then pull back out, and the painting's in a gallery. And all the people that got paintings had the paintings in the gallery. That was my vision for the end of the film. But this spontaneous moment happened, and, it just became what it became. And I wanted to incorporate the picture of him and his dad somehow.
That was
because
beautiful.
It's a very powerful moment.
Yeah.
And as it turned out, that's what he called me. He goes, hey, man, I got one more painting I'm going to give away. I said, okay, well, where do you want to do it? He goes, well, I'm going to do it at the Museum of Natural History where my dad took me. I was like, all right. And I didn't know his dad was going to be there. I didn't know that's what he had as an idea. And it's such a powerful moment that when I see it, even now, and I've seen it, obviously, I cut the fucking film. I see it now, and I still cry.
Sure.
Yeah.
Because what is the most powerful element as a human being is, a relationship with a parent that you loved. And talking to his father, I had more of an interview with his father about Anthony that I only used a little bit, but twofold. His dad had a great description of who Anthony was as a child and the man that he turned into, but also he said it to me off camera. He goes, "Thank you for saving my son's life." And there was for me personally, that particular part of the film means a lot, because not that I want to take responsibility for saving Anthony's life, because I think Anthony saved his own life and maybe I helped, but it's just a really great moment, because you look back to your childhood and what I honestly say a lot that I think in everybody's life, you get to a point where you're about 11 or 12 years old and you have nothing but great times. And by the time you hit 12, I always think of Jim Morrison. There's an album called American Prayer by the Doors that they did after Jim Morrison died. That was all his poetry. And there's a line in that album that I'll never forget. And he says, "I'll never wake up in a good mood again." Mm-hmm. And I feel like by the time you get to be 12 years old, you never wake up in a good mood again, And in that regard, here was Anthony with his father. And he had a rough time, but he had this really beautiful time with his father. And that particular moment, if you think about being in an orphanage or being, with foster parents, and the man that's your father that you didn't know comes to get you, and you become, there might have been some molestation on Anthony from those families. We don't know, and he didn't dive into it. But certainly the notion of sticking a thermometer up his ass rather than sticking it in his mouth, after being with a family that did that prior to the one that stuck it up his ass, you don't know. And, so it was just very powerful to me. And I'm so glad that's the way it happened. And I was able to incorporate it. And when I did cut that scene together, I wanted it to be so specific in the moment, because, as an audience, you look at it when they walk away, and I think that you feel it's telegraphed that they're going to, hold hands like the picture. But I wanted them to just kind of just be arms around each other, funny, here we are. And then they jokingly hold hands, and then you dissolve to that picture where they're holding hands. And I think it's just really powerful. That's just my,
without question,
that's how I felt.
Yeah, without question, it's powerful. No doubt about it. Shit, I don't really know where to go, Rico. Usually I steer this ship, but damn.
Just let the waves take us. Buddy.
I'm trying.
Let me just throw you this anecdotal element.
Please. Yeah.
So that song that is at the end, I sang that song, and my good friend Byron Gaither, who's an amazing keyboard player and producer and stuff, he played the piano on it, and I wanted to write a song that encapsulated. Similarly, the video in the beginning, to digress for a moment, the video in the beginning that Anthony did is really a microcosm of the whole movie.
Yeah.
Because it's everything about him. It's funny, it's sad, it's heartbreaking, it's heart-wrenching. It's everything. And that's why I chose to use it, because of that. And so that being said, the song at the end, it had to be very specific to everything. I didn't want it to be cheesy. And I look back and I go, fuck, why? I had a couple friends of mine sing the song. I wanted them to sing it rather than me. And unfortunately, my friends they're fucking they started changing the words and changing sort of the enunciation of the lyrics at different points. And I said, no, it has to be specifically like this, because it's so specific to him and to the story, and it fits. And as much as I don't really like hearing myself sing, I'm okay with it. It works, and Anthony loves it. So,
Well, yeah, and it definitely does work, and that's one of the things about him that I know, and Rico, I think I can speak for you, but please chime in, that we appreciate about him is while he's this great artist and great musician, because he is, and you said it yourself, you've documented it, we acknowledge it, we love his work. He doesn't hold himself higher than anyone else. Do you know what I mean? He's never. He could quit his job tomorrow and be making all the money in the world from his paintings, and I still don't think he would hold himself there. Do you know what I mean? And that's not meant as a commentary on his depression as much as just he's that humble. And
it's a very punk rock sort of mindset in many ways.
Yeah,
where you just don't give a fuck, but this is what it is, and this is what I'm giving.
Yeah, no, it's exactly it. But I mean, but it also makes him accessible to, the people that do love him and do care about him, you know what I mean? And makes his paintings accessible. I love every piece. I told him this last week during the interview. I said, I loved every piece that you shot. Like every piece that made the footage, I would have loved to have any of them. You know what I mean? And I have one. Rico mentioned that he's hung out with them, and he's hung out with them once. They hijacked PodAskew actually and recorded an episode without me and didn't tell me until after it was done. And it came out wonderful, and I do recommend you go check it out if you want, because it's him and OC for hours just rambling about nonsense, but in the best way. It sounds really fun. Go ahead, Rico.
Honestly, the best part was, so yeah, I live in California like you live in California, but I'm in the Bay Area. So I'm that type of person that, yes, I would have loved to have gotten and participated in the scavenger hunt, but I'm kind of thinking to myself like, fuck, 8 hours for a goddamn painting, even though I love the guy.
And for the record, I called Rico the minute I saw the tweet. Not the one about the suicide, but when he was a little bit happier and was like, I'm still doing this, and like, go get him. I called Rico immediately. I was like, get your ass on the PCH and get down there and grab one of these fucking things.
Right.
And ultimately he didn't do it, but.
Well, what happened was OC, I think he posted or he hit me up. I can't remember which was which. He said, that he was going to be in San Jose, which is like 40 minutes from me.
Right.
And I said, holy shit, can you come? And even then, I was trying to get him to come to me. I was like, hey, I'm only 40 minutes from there.
Right.
Why don't you come
shit.
out to Oakland? I know. I was well, at the time, I don't think I had I had a car, but it was kind of.
Yeah, I
so
remember.
Like,
yeah.
So I was kind of like, I can get there. I don't know if I'll be able to get back. So ultimately, he's like, I can't. I got business shit, blah, 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 blah. And this is the day after the infamous canned wine. So. Do you know about that?
No.
Oh yeah.
In San Jose, he was looking for booze, and the only place that was really open was the
gift shop at the hotel he was staying at.
Oh, funny.
And he saw that they had canned wine, and it was like $20 a pop.
And he bought 3 of them.
And he bought 3 of them, and they were like. They packed quite a punch, as he put it. And so I saw this video of him just getting shit-faced on wine from a can. And so the next day I was like, I see you're in San Jose. Like, do you want to meet up? And I was asking if he was even coherent, because the way he described the canned wine, it was like, you're lucky that you're alive.
Right.
And so I drove out there with my girlfriend and met him, and that was the first time I had met him in person, because we've said, we've had him on the show, and all this was under the surface trying to not fuck over CJ, but kind of this is going to really we're going to do a secret episode. And I even had OC do our opening. And the funny thing is that OC has been on, and then I've called him my nemesis. So we were we've called each other the other person's nemesis.
Jokingly,
from time to time.
just to be fair. Yeah.
I got you.
And then now we're fucking very close friends. And so then we record this really long, and since it's OC, it's going to be all over the place. We talk about Hitler. We talk about specifically Hitler jerking off. He's like, I wonder what hand Hitler used to jerk off.
He did, yeah. And there was another discussion about Tarantino's love of the N-word that lasted 30 minutes. Yeah, it just went all over the place. But it was really a fun episode, and like Rico said. But the other thing and to bring it back to what we're, the purpose of today's conversation is, he took Rico 2 of those paintings.
Yeah.
And
he had a trunk of them. He had
but he had the paintings and gave 2 of them to Rico, one to send to me and one for him to keep. So it was totally worth the blowjob that I gave him, but not the reach around that he gave me. He's got calluses.
The Hitler sign, the high Hitler sign at the same
time. No, he's got calluses on his hand.
All right. Anyway, the important part though is that and so 2 things. One, I might have the only original Octopus Caveman movie or a painting, on the East Coast, like an actual painting. He did a thing with some prints. I don't know if you know that he gave away. He sold for charity.
Well, yeah, no, the Love Bot.
Yeah.
My girlfriend bought one, and a lot of people bought them. It's such a great painting, and frankly, I love the red version of the Love Bot.
I do too.
His paintings just jump out at you.
Oh, for sure,
you know?
For sure.
And that's what I loved about him.
And I'm sorry to interrupt you, Mike, but when we met OC like 18 months ago, 2 years ago, it's been a minute. We've known him for a while now. He was still selling the paintings. This was long before he got the idea to give them away. Right. And I actually contacted him. I mean, we were already communicating, but like I reached out to him one night because I was on Instagram looking at his paintings, and I was like, I want the Love Robot. And he quoted me a price that was fair and reasonable. I just couldn't personally afford it. So I had to pass. But like I've wanted that painting since the first time I laid eyes on it, you know. Right. So, and then all his other ones. But then Rico takes the two paintings and he sends me one. But one of the paintings that Rico took is in your movie.
Both of them.
Which
actually,
one was it?
CJ, yours is too, but it's not. It's Jolie. It's really brief.
It's not featured. I didn't see it. I believe you if it's there, but I didn't see it. Rico's got.
Oh, you got the hostage. Oh,
yeah,
that's fucking great.
So
that's one of my all-time favorites.
So it's mine. So the funny thing is that more than once, OC comments like, "No one's gonna want this fucking painting. Like everyone hates this fucking thing," and I'm like, "This is the one I want," because I mean. OC says it very plainly. He's like, who the fuck am I to tell you what my art thinks? Yeah, if you know, and so he's like, no one's going to like this. I don't know why I did a hostage. I just did a fucking hostage. And I'm like, bullshit. This is a representation of the Me Too movement.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, that's the thing about him and his paintings is he doesn't know what's motivating him. And
I think it's alcohol.
Well, that's part of it. You know, I mean, to digress, when I was first interviewing, you know, by the time he talks about his mom and his son at a certain point, he already drank like 3 of those fucking 40-ounce steel, whatever the fuck they are.
Steel reserves, yeah.
Oh, yeah, some malt liquor. And he was pretty hammered at that point. But, you know, he's so funny. Like, it was his birthday last week, and I called him to say happy birthday and stuff. And I go, what are you going to do for your birthday? Well, Emily's coming over, and then I'm just going to get drunk tonight. And he's okay with that. You know, he's okay. He likes being by himself. He loves to have people over. Every time I go to his pad, I mean, I end up leaving at like 1 o'clock, and it usually, you know, involves, you know, us drinking and, you know, playing some music and stuff, and playing guitar or whatever, and that sort of thing. But, you know, he's a great Renaissance guy in a lot of ways. In that, you know,
he's not even a Renaissance man; he's a Renaissance guy. I like that. Even
exactly. But one thing that I told him about where this is going to go, because we're in the Newport Beach Film Festival, and you know, look, I'm in Hollywood. I've been in the business for 35 years. I can't even tell you the people that I've not even rubbed shoulders with, but shared space with for long periods of time, whether we were drinking or doing other things, and being friends and being confided in and all that kind of stuff. And I told him, I said, you know, when we go to this event, you are going to be, people are kind of like, I mean, look, you guys are a microcosm of what I'm talking about. This sort of reverential sort of look at him. And people, you know, when the movie's over, and I've done movies, I've been in Sundance with projects that I was an camera operator on, and done the Q&A, and you know, he's the star, and he's a reluctant star, but in many ways he'll appreciate the appreciativeness that he's given out, and that's another element to this whole thing was, you know, what he did by giving to the community, they gave back to him, and there was a great give and take, and specifically would not have happened without social media. And so, as I said in the film, I think that there's social media did something right for once, you know, and that he gave and people gave back. And it was really, for me, it was like to see people genuinely like his work, like you guys, and tell him, you know, I really like your work, because, you know, when you watch him paint it and all that footage that I got of him painting and stuff, you know, it's a very, you know, I can't paint for shit. I've never really tried. I can't draw. I can barely fucking sign my name. the same way twice, but to see him and how the paintings evolve, and yeah, something doesn't come out the way he wants it, and he just goes over it with some DAP or plaster or whatever and creates something new. That's really fucking hard to do.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys paint, but I find
No.
that really hard to do and make something that has emotion to it, and you look at it and you feel something, whether it's the hostage or Lovebot or whatever the fuck it is. And I don't know, I just think he's such a fucking incredible guy, an incredible artist, that I think that when we do get to the festival, it's going to bring him attention that he never imagined, and he's going to rub shoulders with people that he never imagined, and hopefully make the kind of money that he never imagined that he rightfully deserves.
Oh, for sure.
So.
I mean, and so that actually leads me to a couple things. Number one, from what he's told us, it's already got him some new exposure, which is really cool. He said he just mailed a piece over to Hong Kong, I think he said, like a couple weeks ago. So because as we talked about his humbleness, he doesn't need to be the guy. You know what I mean? He just wants to be appreciated. And now I think he's starting to see that he is appreciated, because he said he's selling 1 or 2 a month at this point, like selling them now. And that's great. I mean, I'm not finding fault with him making money off it.
I had to tell him to stop giving them away.
Yeah.
I said, you're diminishing the rarity of them.
True.
And although that feeling of giving away is a great feeling, you've sort of achieved, you've gotten to a certain zenith where you don't have to give them away. I know it helps you, it makes you feel good, but you've achieved a certain place where they're important and you're important, and people want this piece that you've created, and, relish in that, take advantage of that, take advantage of your creativity. There's nothing wrong, as punk rock as he is in that regard, there's nothing wrong. You're not selling out by selling bits of art that you've made.
Agreed.
He's adhered to it. He's given away some, just to kind of go off subject for a second. There was a story I wanted to put in the film, but I didn't. The woman that basically, he stays up all night and he sits outside and he smokes cigarettes and he's got his cat, and now he's got a fucking skunk and a fucking, a possum that comes around. It's like fucking, he's like Dr. Doolittle. But prior to that, he just decided to put a painting outside his mobile home in the middle of the street and just leave it there for someone to find. And this woman walked, it was like 2 or 3 in the morning, came walking down the middle of his street in his mobile home park and saw the painting and picked it up and fell in love with it. And he happened to be outside and they had this conversation. He's like, oh my God, do you know where this came? He goes, yeah, it's my painting. He goes, oh my God, I'm an artist and I was having sort of creative block and I needed to take a walk and I found your painting and I love it. And it inspires me, and I didn't have a place for that in the film because as it was an hour, 40 minutes. And there was so much more that I could have put in there, but I wanted to sort of streamline it a bit. There was this whole group of people that worked at this smoke shop that he had put all these paintings in this underground parking garage. And they had done like all these videos on Twitter of us. Oh, he's got paintings out of the thing, and it looked like fucking Blair Witch Project of them, chasing down paintings. And he left a cassette playing there, a little cassette player with like one of his songs or whatever it was. That if you found the painting, you just had to turn the tape over and press play again so that it continuously played, or either that or it just kept playing. And so these people, one of them got the table painting, the black table with that guy's face that we talked about that was on Instagram. And there's like the guy strapping it to the roof of his car. And it was just like, I wish I could have put it in the film, but it would have been 2 hours long. But there's just all these great, genuine moments from him. I know it's off subject what we were saying, but I wanted to be sure to tell you that stuff.
It's actually
so cool.
Fits into a question I was going to ask you, because like he even mentioned a few things that got cut from the movie, and just because you have to, do what you do with your film. But like he talked about another artist that he knew. So how did you do? Because it couldn't have been easy to make the decisions. Okay, this one stays, this one doesn't stay. Like, how did you decide what cuts you were going to make in terms of that journey?
The woman, the first woman that I interview,
Karen, wasn't it?
Carrie.
Oh, Carrie. Sorry.
She, we got to the block party and most of the people were there. And so that was my chance to interview them. And I don't know, I kind of went completely off my gut. When I whenever I edit anything or even write anything, I try to look at it from 10,000 feet. I try to, separate myself from it. If I was a viewer, if I was a reader, because I've read a lot of scripts in my time. Every time I start a project, I get the script. If I'm doing episodic, I get a fucking script for every episode that we're doing. And if I'm not interested by page 3, I start falling asleep. So my goal very simply was with this, in terms of having people, I wanted to get the most interesting people. And frankly, they were all interesting. There was a guy that I didn't put in there. That there's a place that it's called Neptune's Net, and it's a sort of a little fish, like a fish and chips kind of place, beer place that bikers go to. I go there. It's right on county line, they call it. It separates Los Angeles County from Ventura County. It's county line beach, basically. And so we put one there, and this dude drove all the way from Oxnard, which is, probably maybe 30 miles away. He worked at a correctional facility, and he drove there on his lunch to get it.
Wow.
And I interviewed him. I sat there drinking a beer, eating fish and chips, waiting for someone to show up. And all of a sudden this dude showed up, and I bum rushed him and stuff. And it was a great story, but I just couldn't put it in. So I kind of stuck with my meat of Carrie and, the dude that drove from Santa Barbara, because that's a great story. And he was a really interesting cat. And, Tim, who had the painting that looked like him, who was really fucking interesting.
Yeah.
And, they were all interesting. And I don't know. I just went with my gut, to be honest with you. So much of it was just with my gut.
So if you can remember, Mike, and if you can't, that's fine. But how many paintings did he actually give away that day? Because I think it's only like 4 or 5 in the movie. But how many did he actually give away that day?
That day specifically, and what blew me away about it is we started really early, but we had the first one, Randy, at the donut shop.
Yep.
Then we had the one at the Museum of Modern Art that John got, and then we went to MacArthur Park. And I was pissed off that he came and got the other one, and so he said that he was going to mail it to someone. But I was like, you fuck! Why would you do that, man? We're fucking, this is for multiple people to be involved in.
Yeah, I kind of felt the same way.
He was going to mail it off. Yeah.
And he said he's going to mail it off. Do we actually know if he did or not?
No, he actually did. And the woman that he mailed it to, she got upset at one point that he purged a bunch of people on Twitter because of one thing or another. I forgot what it was, but it turns out she got over it. And then the one that he gave away, the one that he gave away at the block party. And then he gave that other one away with that last thing. This has been the greatest day of my life. And so however many that was. Oh, and then the one to Missy, the porn star. So I guess, what was it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I guess 6.
Oh, I was just curious because it sounded like there were a couple that didn't make the cut. So it sounded like there might have been a lot more. I was curious,
Yeah. I think he might have given one more away when I left. And there was a great shot of Anthony, because it was like, I think 5 or 6 o'clock by the time I left the block party. And we'd been at it all day. We'd driven all over LA and stuff. And I said, dude, I got to go, man. I love you. We sat out in the back and drank beers for a while there and stuff. And anyway, when I left, there was this shot of Anthony as I drove by. And I wished I would have fucking shot it. And I kick myself when I think about it, where he was just leaning against the light pole out in front of the block party, just sort of taking it all in and marinating and everything. And I think about it. It was such a movie shot that it was like a dolly shot, just me driving by of Anthony. And he didn't notice me driving by, just by himself, standing out there, taking it all in, because he spent so much time with everyone that got a painting and talking to them. And as he does, Rico, from your time, you understand that.
Right.
And,
he directs the attention from himself to who he's talking to.
Very much so.
He's less interested in talking about himself. He's more interested in what you have to say.
Yeah. And, so that day, as I said, I think it was about 6 paintings, but he went on he's like, I left another painting out last night. I left another one here. I mean, I think he's given away probably 30 paintings, and I was only able to document maybe 10 of them,
Okay.
So, and like specifically the woman at Huntington Beach Pier, that was just such a mind blowing thing.
Yeah.
Because We
that
had
was
an
a cool
interview
one.
with the reporters, and you know, they did their interview with Anthony, and he said, "All right, man, we're gonna go put the painting down at Ruby's, which was a restaurant at the end of the pier." I was like, all right, great, let's go. And I got a couple shots of him walking and stuff, and then the older Asian guy, Anthony tried to give it to him, and the guy didn't want it. He wanted a picture of it to send to his friend that lived in Paris. He was like this red herring, you know, that was like, oh, we got a guy that got the picture, and then he didn't want it, and he bailed. And then Anthony split. He's like, well, I'm going to go have a smoke, and I'm going to walk down here. And so I was there with the reporters, and then that woman came along, Joan Bloomfield, and she found it, and I saw her pick it up and look at it, and I just said, she goes, oh my God, this painting's beautiful. What? And I said, well, you can have it if you want it. And it was just amazing. It was her anniversary, and
Right.
and then the after event of me interviewing the reporter and her talking about it, and then Anthony just had the most profound line of, yeah, somebody else was supposed to come get that painting and she didn't show up. And he's like, I painted this for Joan. You know, this was for her, and I didn't even know it. And it was like, what a beautiful, spontaneous, amazing event.
It's funny, Mike, because last week when we talked to him about the documentary and the whole thing, and we talked about a lot of these different, the people that came to get him and all that. Joan's the only one he mentioned he hoped she saw the movie.
Yeah, I don't know how to contact her. And
neither did he.
Anthony does. Yeah. I think maybe the reporters might, so maybe we can get through them. I mean, I could look her up. I mean, there's probably so many Joan Bloomfields in Orange County, but I hope she sees it, because she's like sort of she's the climactic moment.
Right.
You know, Greg Grunberg, the actor, was sort of icing on the cake.
Sure.
And that was a byproduct of, you were talking about, just you, Rico, being in San Jose, and people were contacting him from all over, wanted to fly him to Rome, wanted to fly him to Toronto, wanted to fly him to New York, and put him up and drive him around and have him leave paintings around. And what a amazing byproduct of this event. So, he's like, well, more people they want me to put them out, and let's put one out in Malibu. I said, all right, cool, let's do it. And we put it out there at Pepperdine, and I was hiding behind a tree, and this dude shows up, and it's a fucking actor. And I was like, far out,
Quick side note that you may already know, Mike, but he shared this with us last week, that apparently from that, Greg got another one at his request that he then gifted to J.J. Abrams. So J.J. has
I didn't know that.
He has a robot painting in the Bad Robot production offices, apparently.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah. So.
Well, I mean, all giving up part of it is, I kind of knew Greg because I worked on Felicity, back in the TV show Felicity, which was J.J. Abrams' first TV show. And because Greg followed me, that got him to Octopus Caveman. And him and J.J. Abrams are best friends from like kindergarten.
Yeah.
So J.J. puts him in every project that he's ever done. And and JJ's the kind of guy that I worked on the first Star Trek movie that he directed, and he kind of remembered me from Felicity and stuff. And he's a very enthusiastic filmmaker that appreciates art and appreciates, that's what I was telling Anthony. Is people will appreciate this so much, and I'm bummed that we didn't get into Sundance, but Sundance, they had a very specific. I think they have a very specific sort of ideology to what they wanted, and we didn't fall in any of those categories. But I just think it's just solid little film in terms of emotion and specifically an artist and someone who is an artist and what they go through and look, the hardest thing in the world, there's three things that are probably the hardest thing in the world. Number one, getting up and singing karaoke in a bar when you don't sing. And being worried about people judging you. Yeah. And number two, like writing something and giving it out and having people judge it. And last, or music, I should say music and painting, because people are ruthless. People are like, oh, this is shit. This is, everything's American Bandstand with a thumbs down,
I would add to that, Mike, maybe a fifth one, and this is going to sound very self-serving, but it's not meant to be. But doing this is a very easy way to put yourself out into the world and open yourself to some scrutiny. So sitting behind a microphone and putting your voice out to the world that way too. It's very similar to music, but in a different way, obviously.
Absolutely.
But it's not meant to be.
Speak for yourself. I'm a fucking natural at it.
Yes, you are. I had a couple questions about the film festival, so I'm glad you kind of circled back to that, Mike, and then not so much about Sundance because that's just what it is, but I don't know enough about this stuff. Rico, you might know more than I do. We've just never really talked about it on air or really at all, I think. But we have a friend who is a director in London, and he created a short film. It's, 18 minutes, Rico? It's not a long film.
It's something about, it's close to 20.
Yeah, it's about 20 minutes. Mm-hmm. And when he finished the film, he sent it to us privately because we're friends of his or whatever, and he wanted us to see it. We enjoyed it. And we offered, in a way to help him, to put it on his YouTube channel, our YouTube channel, and he was like, no, because he was trying to submit it to festivals, and apparently, and maybe the rules are different in London, that's getting to the crux of my question, is if we had done that, it would have disqualified him from the festivals over there. So, is there going to be any issue with Newport for it being up on YouTube?
As far as, first off, I'm gonna pull it off of YouTube. I kind of want to do a limited run.
I guess the link that we have is going to be null. We put a link on our last episode so people could go see it, but that's okay.
Yeah, I mean, I just felt with sort of the COVID thing, and I don't have the clearances for some of the songs.
Yeah, he said that.
So we were gonna do original music in place of those, which I'm gonna do. But Sundance was specific about that. Newport wasn't.
Okay.
So as far as I know, and I remember correctly, it's funny because the Newport thing happened and then the COVID thing hit. It was supposed to have already happened in April, and now it's been pushed till August. So, and even then, I don't know how it's going to work out. But, if that happens, and then I'm just going to say, hey, look, it was COVID, and we put it out for a limited run just to get a little flavor on it and stuff. And because I was excited to have people see it, and so was Anthony, and get the feedback, and it was so. I mean, we've gotten over 1,000 views, and people really like it, and I see what people say about it. Obviously, you guys liked it, so I'm going to pull it, and we'll do the necessary fixes. I mean, I look at it, and I picked it apart in terms of my editing, and I'm very happy with what I did, and it's got a nice flow to it, and it's very cohesive, and it's just a matter of fixing the. I'd fix some of the vocal parts of it, the audio parts of it. But it's still raw, and I like the fact that it's raw, and I like the fact. I mean, I always like Anthony, and I would tell him, look at the Gigi Allen documentary. I don't know if you saw that, but Todd, what's his name, did it? Todd Phillips did it. He was now a big time director, and a lot of it's really rough, and the stuff that isn't was so set up that I was like, well, fuck, the stuff with his brother, and he's out in front of his house and talking to the neighbors like it's this, sort of organic moment, but it's not. It's totally fucking set up.
Right.
So we, other than me looking at his tweets that I had to have, somebody shoot,
sure,
while I was sitting on my couch, that was happening in the moment. And I was just like, hey, would you mind shooting this to my son? And, and the Zooms were stuff that I did in post on me and stuff for the, sort of punctuated moment. But, so I don't know. Well, I'm going to pull it, and, I got what I wanted. It was a test screening. Every project that's made, they do a test screening, and that was my test screening.
Well, I gotta say, when my girlfriend and I watched it, she had a big kick watching it because she's from Huntington Beach. So, and even more incidentally, when OC and I recorded in San Jose, and the punchline to that whole thing is OC sent it to CJ to our email.
Yeah.
And he didn't say, hey, this is OC. He just wrote open me and had it be Anthony Pedersen. Right. And I called CJ. I was like, you need to check our fucking email right now. I just got a weird email because I knew what it was, but I wanted to freak out CJ. And CJ was like, delete it. I'm going to delete it. I'm like, no, you fucking idiot. Don't fucking delete it.
Because it came across like a spam thing where
or something.
Right, or where you open it and it infects the computer or whatever. So I was like, let's just get rid of this thing. And he's like, So Rico ultimately had to be like, no. It's just open it and listen to it. I promise you, it's not a virus.
Right.
And I got about
What did you guys think? Go ahead. Sorry.
I got about 2 minutes into it, and I texted him like, "What the fuck did you do?" So what were you going to say?
What did you guys think of the video in the beginning? His video. How do you think that dovetails into the story itself?
I think it's really good. It took me till maybe about 50% of the way through the film to realize you didn't shoot it, but that's not meant in a negative way in any way. Like I had to I don't know. It was weird. That's the only thing that was a little off for me is that I thought it was something you shot, and then I realized later that it was something he shot. It sets the tone for me. I can't speak for Rico, but like you had said earlier, it really kind of does encapsulate the whole vibe of the documentary. And of course, you don't know that till you get to the end. But it definitely does. I didn't get to say this to him last week when we were talking because I just didn't get an opportunity really. But like watching him rip off the different pieces of the notebook and throw them away, and then take the one where he said, "I'm in love with someone who hates me," and fold it up and put it in his pocket. I've been there, maybe not to the level that he's been because I know the shit that he's been through, but I've been there and was like, I mean, that one hit me more than any of them, Yeah. So, but Rico, what did you think, bud?
I had never seen it, but I was aware of it because I've seen OC talk about it on other videos or mention it in writings and shit like that. Like he's alluded to it. I think he alluded to it on an episode once, but I think it just went over our head. So I kind of knew about it. But when I saw it again, like CJ, I thought you had done it, and then I realized, oh no, I could tell OC's younger in this one.
Yeah,
I could tell this is about 5 years previously. And like CJ said, it was heartbreaking. It was funny. That was the thing. My favorite part of that segment is he's like, but not even him showing the dick. It's him having that smirk that he has and his eyebrow kind of raised a little bit and say, "Hey, you want to see something really funny?" And then showing the dick. Right. And then I'm watching with my girlfriend and I'm like, that's fucking funny. And then it just goes dour. It goes it gets raw. It gets honest. And like CJ said, I've been there too. I've been in love with, people that didn't love me back. But I think it's different because I've never been married. So I think there's levels of love and relationship statuses. I think watching that part, OC has said this before on the film, and then he actually said it with me in my episode with him. He's like, my ex-wife has always said I married Anthony and then I divorced Octopus Caveman. And that in its crux, as funny as a statement as that is, it's really heartbreaking.
It is, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's a great contrarian element to so many things that Anthony says that is, on one side hysterical and the other side heartbreaking. And that's what that kind of encapsulates his whole run on everything, Yep. And just to give you a little, I don't know if you knew this or not, but so many of his paintings have that heart. It's in the middle of it, like Lovebot has it and stuff. He's got a tattoo right in the middle of his chest that's a heart. Yeah. So it's I didn't really capture that, and I wish I would have, but it's okay. It's not really a big thing, but it's all representative of him in a lot of ways. When you see any of the paintings with a heart in the middle of it, it's directly sort of attributed to his
self-portraits.
His being. Yeah.
It's funny. He says that he can't do commissions. If someone says, "Hey, I need you to draw some fucking birds," he can't draw birds. But if we were to say, "Dude, majority of your paintings are fucking self-portraits in your own way," you may say this is Sean Penn, but if anything, that's you.
Right.
See, that should have been a fucking ending. Is the Sean Penn painting?
But don't criticize his fucking his movie, man.
No. Look, all things considered. Okay. Him with his dad, it's a nice fucking ending. But Sean Penn, getting Sean Penn painting, that would have been
pretty badass.
Well, I wasn't a big fan of the last painting that he put out there next to the bench before we kind of fade out. It's not one of my faves, but yeah, Sean Penn would have been really good to kind of put there, and and on that note, have Sean Penn walk up.
My second favorite painting of his period is actually, and I told him this last week, is the one he gave his dad. I love that painting.
Well, what's interesting is if you look at the film again, when I first go into his bedroom and he's taking out his paintings, the two most important paintings that he pulls out and he puts side by each is the one that Joan Bloomfield got on the pier and the one that he gave to his dad.
Yeah,
that's right.
And just by irony or divine intervention, these two paintings that ended up being the most dramatic paintings that he gave away are the ones that he put out that were right next to each other at the beginning of the film when he first shows me his art. It's pretty interesting.
No, it is, and I actually hadn't thought of it that way, but it's an interesting way to look at that. So
I'm glad that there are some good things that come out of Santa Clarita. I dated a girl who lived in Santa Clarita, and it drove me fucking nuts having to travel there. So I'm glad something good came from you.
Well, I grew up in the Valley, and I kind of ended up out here when I first got married because the houses were cheap, the schools were good. I had kids that were babies, and then I ended up back in the Valley for a while, and my mom passed away, and my divorce cost me a lot of money. So from her estate, I bought the house that I'm in now, and I mean, I looked all over the city, where I would want to possibly live in it. The one thing about Santa Cruz is it's very clean. There's some good people around here. My kids have a lot of friends around here. I mean, if I had my druthers, I'd probably want to live in, like near the beach or something. But it's funny. There's a lot of people in the industry out here.
Yeah.
A lot of my friends in the industry out here, and it's. I mean, I have no desire to live in Hollywood. I have no desire to live in downtown LA, or I'm not a fucking hipster and Silver Lake or anything like that. And I mean, being a filmmaker doesn't automatically land you in this sort of you're this avant-garde guy. I mean, I learned a very traditional style of filmmaking coming into the business. My dad was in it, my fourth generation, and but as I went along in my career, I started doing like rock videos. I got in with this rock video guy that was one of the top rock video directors of photography, and he did stuff that was so ballsy that I loved how I did an Ozzy Osbourne tour with him in like 1992. And then we did a few videos of Ozzy and then some other bands, and he was just ballsy. And I took that to my sort of style of photography, and, sort of more one lightish kind of stuff, very motivated light. And, if not motivated, then just something interesting. And you don't have to look like, Dash Riprock, the artist, to be creative and to do interesting stuff. And, guys that I know that I've worked with, they don't look like what you would perceive as a director of photography or even a director. They're just great dudes. I mean, Jonathan Demme, I worked with Jonathan Demme on a show a few years back before he passed away. And it was an episodic thing, that I did called Shots Fired, and we shot it in North Carolina. And so Jonathan Demme was brought in to direct one, and he was just such a great, great guy and so wonderful. But he would show up to work wearing like Pokemon pajamas and, and like slippers and was just really kooky, but that's just the way he was. But he would love to talk about, I mean, everybody was all over him about Silence of the Lambs or Philadelphia or Stop Making Sense or the Neil Young concerts that he shot. And he's just so engaging. And so in many ways, he reminded me of when I was a kid. My dad used to work with Blake Edwards, who did all the Pink Panther movies and like 10 and SOB and stuff. And so I was on the set a lot with my dad, with Blake, and I worked on him as a kid and as a young man. And Jonathan had that same affable way that Blake Edwards had, and there's a lot of people that aren't like that now. And had that gravitas in the projects that they did, but we're still completely down to earth, regular people. I mean, Blake Edwards was married to Julie Andrews, for Christ's sake. So
right. Can I just request that if we're ever going to get a documentary made about PodAskew, we need you to do it?
Yeah.
It'd be my honor.
Well, yeah, that's assuming anyone besides Jay would want to watch it. But that's, a whole other thing. And to your point though, Mike, you've had I've had your IMDb up the entire time we've been talking, and if I was to go through your filmography, we'll be here for 4 more hours, which I would gladly do, but I don't want to do that to you. But Rico,
I got nothing but time.
What's that?
I got nothing but time.
Well, we appreciate that. We do, sincerely. But at the same time, like, I wouldn't even know where to start. I'm being honest with you. There's so many things on here that I've seen, that I've been a fan of, that I've watched. Some of them you've been, a part of, it looks like, from the whole thing, and other things, like, an episode here, an episode there. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's just the way that I'm sure the industry operates.
Well, a lot of what happens is, because I'm a Steadicam operator also.
Yeah.
Right.
When you're a Steadicam operator, you get called, like, out of the blue. Are you available? And sometimes you fly to wherever it is, and you sort of get plunked into this place, wherever it is. It could be Mexico, it could be Canada, it could be East Coast, anywhere, the South, whatever. And you come in like this soldier, and inevitably, because I've been doing it for a long time, I'll know at least 1 or 2 people on the crew.
Sure.
But yeah, you come in, and to be honest with you, it's all the same thing. What is, here's the shot. This is what we want to do. And, you get a quick sort of idea of what compositionally they like to do, what the scene's about, and you apply that to whatever you're doing. But, it's funny. So before I got on with you guys, I was riding my Harley with, a bunch of other guys in the business that are friends of mine. And, one guy is, a famous director of photography named Johnny Jensen. Johnny Jensen worked with my father years ago. So, I've known him. I didn't know him real well, but I knew of him since I was a kid. Mm-hmm. And, Johnny did everything from like Grumpy Old Men to, a movie that's been talked about recently called Rosewood, because it was about, slaves and, in the 1800s and 1900s, or maybe the early 30s. I can't remember exactly, but Johnny did some really beautiful work, and he's 72 now, and, sort of doesn't get hired anymore because he's a very no nonsense guy. But, his son is a guy named Jimmy Jensen, who is like the top, focus puller, first assistant, I can't even go over his credits, but he is the top guy. And Jimmy's done he gets the first call on every big movie there is. And then, my friend Billy Brow, who was Johnny's operator and assistant for a long time, who's retired now, lives near me. And so we all went riding, and it's like we get together, and we never really made it to riding. We got to Johnny's house and just drank beers and did some shots, and I had to come back for this deal. But, there's just so many great stories that we all have with one another, and the history of the things that we've done. And, you go into projects, the phone rings and here's a project. Are you available? You make a deal for the money, and you don't really come into it knowing, other than big movies that is a big movie and it's going to be like Titanic. You go work on Titanic, you know what Titanic is.
Sure.
And my experience on that, to be brief, was, it was near the latter part of the film. They'd called me several times to come work on it. I'd been a camera operator for, I think, 2 or 3 years, and I was finally available, and I went down there, and literally we flew to San Diego, and they drove us to Rosarito, where the set was, and the ship was made and stuff. And you drive up and you see this fucking massive fucking ship that's just there. And I just went, wow, this is fucking crazy. And of course, you know who Cameron is.
Mm.
Right.
And I had a lot of friends on the crew and stuff. And my first thing with James Cameron was, Jimmy Muro was the Steadicam operator on that. And I was just a regular operator. Jimmy Muro said, "Hey, have you met Jim yet?" I go, "No." And so he takes me and goes, "Hey, Jim, this is Mike May, one of our other camera operators." And James Cameron goes, "Mike May, welcome aboard." And he goes, "How's your hand held?" Holding the camera on your shoulder, handheld.
Right.
And I go, "It's good." And he goes, "On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate yourself?" And I'm like, "Well, fuck, I'm not going to say 10,
Right.
And as I'm searching for a number in my head, all right, he goes, "Are you at least an 8?" And I go, 8.5. So, next thing I know, he goes, "All right." And I get on this dry suit. It was a huge tank. It was like a fucking massive water tank that was like 4 feet deep, except for the front of the Titanic was, like 40 feet deep. So because the bow was on hydraulics, so they could drop it and bring it back and do it as many times as they wanted. So I end up in a little boat that takes me out there in front of the bow. And, I'm out there with my camera and my focus puller was a guy that I knew. And so I did the shot, and Cameron's on, this, we call it the voice of God, but it's a PA system that can be heard throughout the whole thing. And, so we do, and action, and all these people are fucking drowning and shit, and the fucking bow's sinking and all this stuff. And I do my shot and, cut. And, all of a sudden I hear Cameron go, "Good, Mike." And, I go, "Did he just say good, Mike?" And it was like, I just go, "Fuck, did he just say good, Mike?" I was like, I wasn't, all right. Anyway, so I get out of the water and boom, boom, boom. I do a few other shots, and I do this other one where it's me, cause Cameron operated a lot of shots, and I'm standing in front of the bow with James Cameron and Jimmy Muro, and we're lined up 1, 2, 3. And it's when the Italian dude is swimming away from the ship and the smokestack lands on him. The smokestack was done in visual effects, but the actual shot of him swimming away is, just regular stuff. So we do our shots, cut, and we go, and there was this bank of like 6 monitors that were lined up, and so we'd look at replay. So Cameron goes, "All right, play back Mike's camera." And first of all, the frame lines, they put tape over the monitors to make the frame lines proper for what we're shooting in 16:9 and, anamorphic. And so my shot comes up and it's all snow. Fucking didn't record. And Cameron starts just vilifying the video guys. "What the fuck? Where the fuck is Mike's shot? God damn it, right here." And the guys, I don't know what happened." And Cameron turns to me and he goes, "How was your shot?" And I go, "It was fucking great." He goes, "Okay, let's move on." And I get out of the water and I take my dry suit off, and the producer, John Landau, comes up to me and he goes, "What's your name?" And I go, "Mike May." And he goes, "How long you been here?" And I go, "I don't know, like 2-3 days." And he goes, I said, "Why, am I fired?" He goes, "No, I just can't believe that if Jim asks you if the shot's good, that you say yes and he believes you." And I said, "I don't know what to say, man." But Cameron liked me. And my only response to it is that, you come into a project, whether you're a camera operator or a focus puller, anything that has to do specifically with someone like James Cameron, is just having a level of confidence and being into the moment and understanding what the scene's about, and doing something that it's not reading their mind. It's, again, looking at it from 10,000 feet and, doing something that when you're sitting in front of your TV or a 50-foot movie screen, that you can say, "That's a bitchin' shot," or "That's a great shot."
So wait,
I got to say that. Go ahead, CJ.
No, mine's a goofy question. If you have a legit one, go for it.
Well, mine's just a comment. I think it's funny you said 8.5, and I'm like, Cameron should just be calling you Fellini from now on, because that's just like the fact 8.5 is just a great fucking filmmaker reference.
Yeah, exactly. He just chewed up people and spit them out left and right. And
he could be the angriest Canadian I've ever even heard of, but like,
I don't even know. I don't know if he was Canadian. Is he Canadian? I thought he was from. He was like
Cameron?
a truck driver from LA. Yeah.
Yeah, he's Canadian.
Oh wow. Well, there you go.
CJ, what were you gonna say?
My question was way goofier. But since you were on set and saw it, I just want to know: was there actually enough room for both Jack and Rose on the door? Because I think there was. I'm just saying.
There definitely was. No comment. That's the thing you want to comment on.
Yeah.
I got a question.
Leo was just a little kid then, man. I mean, he had like twig arms, and
that's what I'm saying. There was plenty of room on that door. I'm just saying.
Again,
anyway,
if he would have made it, there wouldn't have been tears flowing. So
that's
you gotta,
true. That's
consider.
True. Fair enough.
The funny thing was that another director that I worked with, I think, it was prior to that, was a guy named George Cosmatos. And we did this film together called Shadow Conspiracy, that was a Charlie Sheen movie with Linda Hamilton, who was still married to Cameron.
Cameron, yeah.
And so George Cosmatos directed Tombstone, and he directed Shadow Conspiracy. Shadow Conspiracy was his first movie after Tombstone. Cosmatos fired 100 people on Tombstone. So on Shadow Conspiracy, I replaced someone that got fired, and I lasted the show. But the thing was that, and I knew Linda Hamilton. I'd done a couple other projects with her. And anyway, on Titanic, on Shadow Conspiracy, I met Cameron. He came to visit Linda. We were in Washington, D.C. So on Titanic, I said to Jim, I said, "Hey, I don't know if you remember, I did Shadow Conspiracy with Linda. And, you came to visit the set and whatever. And he goes, "Oh yeah." And, he didn't remember me, but he remembered the moment and all that kind of stuff. But Cosmatos was very similar in that, he was looking to fire people. So you had to be so on your fucking game. And, I have to say in my career, I've worked with some of the most difficult people in the business. And I've always kind of came out on top in terms of not getting fired and not having issues with them because, you come in with that concept of I'm a filmmaker, I'm here to fucking kick ass and do great work. And if you do that, generally those people and they're all the people that I hire when I can hire people, they are of the same mindset, and it's along with your talent, that personality is what kind of keeps you in the game.
Yeah,
Can I ask another question about Titanic?
Yeah.
CJ, what were you gonna say?
No, I was just gonna move on to because he's got several movies I love, and I don't want stories from each, but I was just gonna list a few of them for him. But anyway, go.
Well,
yeah,
I had heard of the infamous PCP chowder of Titanic.
Yeah.
So did you get?
I wasn't there for that. I certainly heard about it. I mean, it was. I don't think we ever broke for lunch because it was at night and there was so many fucking people. You had all these extras in water, with their costumes on and stuff. And to break for lunch, it would take 2 hours, and that would take away from shooting. So, people would just walk around and give you some food, and you were there from the time you got there until the time you went home. You were in the fucking tank or outside of it. And I did do some stuff on stage. I don't remember if I did the scene where the two of them are on the bow because that was all on stage. But I did some of that stuff. I don't recall exactly, but
CJ, do you know what I'm talking about?
No, but you can fill us in because I don't want to.
Someone dumped a bunch of PCP in like some lobster chowder.
Oh, good.
During and everyone got fucking fucked up. Including Cameron.
Yeah.
Apparently, Cameron's eye turned bloodshot red. That he was told that he looked like Schwarzenegger, the Terminator, with the blood eye.
Oh, geez.
And he went and made himself throw up immediately. But a lot of people got fucked up, and they never caught the guy. Apparently, it was just
I mean, there were so many people on that show that the camera department. I actually have a call sheet from it around here somewhere. And if you look at the call sheet, which is what tells you, who's working, what their names are, what time they're supposed to be there, what scenes you're going to shoot. The fucking call sheet is the most mind-blowing thing when you see the amount of people that were part of it. And
so it's not like you can narrow down the suspects. It's like, okay, well, there's 150 fucking people here.
Because ultimately, with that, craft service, when they have they'll put out soup and stuff, and there'll usually be two big things of soup. One will be like chicken soup and one will be like clam chowder or something, and on a show like that, it was even more. It was just so much, it was a fucking city. I mean, they built that whole set from scratch there, and it's, I've done other big shows, but nothing will ever be as big as that.
Oh, yeah. Like I said earlier, I'm looking at this thing and we could talk to you for hours, but I mean, Escape from LA is a movie I love.
Oh God, I was supposed to do that movie from the start, but I got in a motorcycle accident and broke my ankle, and so I only worked on it for a couple weeks. And specifically, the scene that was the Bruce Campbell fucking plastic surgery scene, if you remember that, where he's doing plastic surgery. And I actually worked with Bruce Campbell on X-Files. It was a great X-Files episode. I don't know if you guys followed that at all, but
I did.
He did an episode where he basically he's married to this woman in the middle of the night, or she goes to get a ultrasound, and the kid looks like he's deformed. And then that night she goes to bed, and all of a sudden she wakes up and there's this fucking devil at the foot of her bed, and spreads her legs open and reaches inside her and pulls the devil out. And she comes out of it. She wakes up the next morning, there's blood all over the bed. And her baby's gone. And anyway, as the episode progresses, Scully and Mulder are looking into it, and it turns out Mulder finds out that Bruce Campbell's actually a devil, and he's got multiple wives. And the tag to the episode is basically that he's a devil that's trying to have a normal kid with human beings. And if the kid comes out looking like a devil, he takes it out of them and kills it and buries it and burns it or whatever. and the one woman that he's impregnated, he tries to take it from her at the end of it, and turns out she's a devil, and she actually wants the devil kid. So it's like a really.
I remember that episode. Yeah, I used to watch, so I remember that. It was a. Rico knows I'm not a big horror. Yeah, Rico knows I'm not a big horror person, and so that's like the limits for me. But I mean, I'm looking at like because you've technically worked on 2 different Star Trek franchises. You worked on the one with JJ, and then you did the first TNG movie. If I'm seeing this right.
Well, yeah, I did the first when it went to episodic. You know, when it was the episodic when Next Generation first came out, and you know, before they started making movies. It was at Paramount. I was doing a movie called The Presidio, and my friends were working on Next Generation, and so they were across the stage from me, and I'd see them and stuff. And my friend Greg Lunsell, he's like, "Hey man, when are you finished? Because you know, we'll get you over here." And I said, "Well, I think we finished in January or whatever." So when I finished Presidio, I started working on Next Generation, and I met Jonathan Frakes back then, and my cousin actually worked on that at that time. And we used to go out to lunch, you know, so I'd go out to lunch with like the DP and Jonathan Frakes, and we'd, you know, drink wine and shit. And so cut to, then years later, the Next Generation movie came about, and I ended up on that. And Frakes remembered me from the TV show.
From all the wine drinking.
Yeah. And he's a great fucking guy. So then cut to, I was doing Orville, and Frakes directed an episode.
Yep.
And he walked on the set when he was scouting, and he was like, "Mike May, where's Mike May?" And I was like, "Wow, fucking Frakes remembers me." I was like, "Hey, John, how are you?" He goes, "Dude, I'm so happy to see you." I mean, he's the greatest fucking guy. But yeah, and then of course, doing the J.J. Abrams version. I mean, they're all decidedly different, you know, in terms of the personnel and all that. But yeah.
Based, I was going to ask something else, but based on what you were just saying, I have to ask this instead. You know, on your relationship with Frakes, do you think that means that you'll ever have some work on Picard? Because he's heavily involved in that project.
For Picard, I interviewed for it when the first season, didn't get it. I think I was a little too old and maybe too what's the right term to use? Experienced.
Seasoned.
Seasoned is a good word. And I thought I had it. I had a great interview with the DP, but he hired somebody else. But you know, you never know why people don't want you or whatever.
Yeah, I only asked because Frakes directed, I think, 2 or 3 of the episodes of the first season. Right. So, you know, it made me curious.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I had a lot of friends on it. And, you know, I talked to them and they go, "Yeah, Frakes said to say hi and stuff." And, you know, because I was doing Orville, and I was just a Steadicam operator on Orville, and they changed directors of photography, and so he wanted to bring his guys, so I got left out of the loop there. But I really liked being part of Orville. I loved working with Seth. He was fun to work with, and you know, he's such a TV buff, and you know, he loved. We'd always play this game of TV theme songs and play them. You know, come up behind you and play like some TV theme song from the 60s or 70s, and you try to guess what it was, and you know, and Seth's was sort of, Orville was kind of like a feature film, even though it was TV, and that there's no holds barred in terms of the equipment that we got, you know, and how long it took to shoot stuff. He didn't care. He just, I don't give a shit. You know, I mean, one of his great lines was, the producers coming to him, "Well, Seth, that's going to cost $100,000. He's like, "I don't give a shit. It's just Murdoch money, and he's going to give it to Hannity anyways." You know, so he hated Fox, and he hated, you know, that whole thing. That's why it's on Hulu now.
Right. Yeah.
I've always been a fan of Seth MacFarlane, not just Family Guy, but just the man himself, because I'm a massive Sinatra buff. So for anybody who pushes the Nelson Riddle Sinatra shit that he does, it makes me. Yeah, I'm diving all the Simpsons episodes, and I just saw an episode where he came on and he like plays basically a variation of himself, as most celebrity voice guys do. But and I'm watching it, I'm like, I think that's Seth MacFarlane. I know that voice, and it kind of looks like him, just yellow, and he's like flirting with Marge, and they're like dating and shit when like on the side. And then I'm like, oh my God, it's Seth MacFarlane. I'm like nudging my girlfriend, I'm like, we're gonna hear some fucking Seth singing Frank, like it's just inevitable. And of course he's just like, "Someday when I'm awfully low."
He truly a Renaissance man in that regard. And yeah, he actually used to imitate. Well, he would do obviously different voices on the set. He would do Peter once in a while. He would do Michael J. Fox all the time from Back to the Future, which was hysterical. But he also used to do crew members. So he'd imitate different crew members on the show, and people would think that it was them, you know. And you know, he was a really fun guy to work with. I missed working with him. You know.
Was he Orville your first?
It was a fun time.
Was he Orville your first experience working with him, or?
Yes,
okay.
Yes. I came in the first season. Somebody got fired. I replaced them, and then the second season, I was asked to do the show. And then the third season, the director of photography didn't get brought back. And, you know, the guy that came in, you know, it goes back to what I said about being seasoned, you know, and I was sort of known as, you know, Seth loved what I did. And I think there was a threat there that I was somehow close with Seth, but, you know, whatever. You can't. People,
there's always
people. The biggest challenge in the industry, and it's been that way for quite a while, you know, is there's people that are insecure, and you know, part of your job, especially if you're a high profile person on the set, is, you know, you kind of have to, you know, it's easy to get drawn into, you know, sort of cajoling, you know what I mean? And I don't do that. I keep a very low profile, but, you know, the actors that you become friends with it. In fact, one of the actors in Orville is a guy named Jay Lee, who is just a great guy. And I shot a movie for him last year that just came out on iTunes called, I think it was Wednesdays, but it's like any other Wednesday. But if you look up Jay Lee, who is one of the actors on Orville, his movie just came out that I shot. And you know, Jay Lee was just a great, funny guy. And he's got a great story because he was from St. Louis. He was a comedian. He's an amazing piano player. And so he got a job working at Seth's company. God damn it, I forgot the name of it.
Fuzzy Door.
Fuzzy Door. He worked at Fuzzy Door, and he was just an office guy, and eventually ended up writing for Family Guy. And Seth made him, gave him a character part in Orville. So,
well, we're also big fans of Ralph Garman. So Ralph Garman.
Yeah. Oh, Ralph.
Do you know Ralph?
I'll tell you. It's not going to be a big mystery, but I'll tell you the story. But Ralph played an alien on Orville.
Right. Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
He was extremely claustrophobic.
Yeah.
And they put this mask on him that was really, I mean, he was fucking completely. All the people that played aliens had these big rubber prosthetics.
Right.
Patrick Warburton, you know, on and on and on. But Ralph freaked out.
I heard that.
He was supposed to play this. And he couldn't handle the prosthetic, and he just went completely. So I can't fucking do this, man. I can't fucking do it. He was sort of, you know, marching around the set saying he couldn't do it. So they got Jason Alexander, and Jason Alexander played the bartender. And you know, and it's funny because I played in a celebrity poker tournament with Jason Alexander. I ended up at the last table in this poker tournament. I'm not a poker player per se, but it was fucking crazy. I was at this last table at Hollywood Park with Jason Alexander, and you know, but anyway.
So that's pretty awesome, though, because I love playing poker. So that would be awesome to be able to say that you did that.
It was crazy.
No, just to elaborate real quick, because like Rico said, we're both fans of Ralph, so we've heard him talk about it. I thought he at least did the one episode, and then they replaced him. Or am I incorrect about that? That he made it through the one episode that he did?
He did make it through the one episode. Pretty sure I wasn't on it when he was on. But I know for a fact, because I was there,
sure,
he was having a lot of trouble with that second time around. And
you know
those prosthetics are just so. I mean, it's a really weird thing. You know, you're in them for, you know, it takes an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours sometimes to put them on, and you know, you're in them for 8, 10, 12 hours a day. So.
Yeah, he's pretty notoriously claustrophobic. He did a whole Hollywood Babylon episode where he was talking about, with him and Kevin Smith, he was supposed to put on a certain type of prosthetic. They had to put him in the casting, and they had to like breathe through like the straws and everything.
Yeah.
And he just couldn't do it. And then ultimately, I think it was, they said, well, we still really want you, so we're gonna like pay for the extra duty CGI version. We're like just gonna like CGI plaster you, just we're gonna get a scope of your head. and just make the mask that way. And he
Right.
said, "Well, he was more humble than anything that like they were doing it specifically just because they wanted him."
Yeah.
But we're also huge, massive fans of Kevin Smith. So with Kevin Smith,
Right.
Comes Ralph Garman, and I'm an impressionist as well. So I like anybody who could do any voice. So.
Which is why he likes Seth
Ralph
MacFarlane.
was really cool. The thing with Seth is Seth was so uncompromising that if there were things that we could do CGI that were easy to not easy because any CGI is hard to do, but
right.
If it became an issue on the set with anything that was a practical, effect,
right.
If it wasn't working, he'd say, "Fuck it, let's just do it on CGI," and that's where they would come and say, "Well, that's going to cost $100,000," and say, "I don't give a fuck." So,
right.
I mean, he was uncompromising, and he is to this day. So,
I'd love to talk to Seth MacFarlane. He's always been. He's always. I could just talk to him about Sinatra. Fuck his career. I'd be like, let's just talk Frank together.
He's just literally an encyclopedia of music. Specifically, Sinatra type stuff. That kind of thing, and
the crooners,
and an encyclopedia of TV. In fact, he was telling me that when he wrote Orville, he just watched so much of everything that's written, and he writes every episode. Right. He writes the whole show before we start shooting. And he just would watch so many shows and cherry pick whatever, because that's really everything is just a rehashed version of something. There's still the arc. There's, boy meets girl, boy loses girl, boy gets girl back, and then boy and girl have a fight, and then boy meets girl again. It's that sort of thing.
Can I ask about Dracula Dead and Loving It? Because I
got some good stories about that. Yeah, go ahead.
I love me some Mel Brooks, and ultimately that is the last Mel Brooks movie that we'll get. I mean, that's the last movie he's directed.
I did his last movie. Yeah.
I mean,
I can tell you this. Mel was he was a little bit of a tyrant on that for whatever reason. I don't think he was always like that, but
just so you know, what you say will be releasing. So if there's, and we usually tell every guest this, like if there's something you don't want us to put out, let us know. We'll cut it out. But ultimately, we're posting this shit.
I'm going to back up that statement with this. In that, first of all, it was great to work on that because my dad actually used to do the original Get Smart that Mel Brooks was one of the writers on.
Oh, wow.
No way. John Adams.
Yeah, and so Mel Brooks was always kind of a household name in my life growing up. But my dad didn't do Blazing Saddles or Young Frankenstein or anything, but we knew a lot of people that did. But anyway, so Mel would be like this tyrant on the set, and be like, "Well, Lars, God damn it," and he'd get mad at stuff. And then we would break for lunch, and we would go watch dailies at the theater that was on the lot at. It's Culver City lot. It's kind of near MGM. But anyway, so we go watch dailies, and Mel would be like ranting and raving, and then we would get to dailies, and then the food would come, and he'd go, "Oh my God, this fucking food is amazing! It's so good! Oh my God, did you guys get the chicken? It's fucking great!" So it was almost like it was more of an act than an actually sort of tyrant kind of thing. But what was so great on that show was, we had Harvey Korman, all the characters that Mel had throughout his films that were still alive. Anne Bancroft was in it. There was just all these great people and just the stuff that would happen on the set and the improv.
Leslie Nielsen.
Leslie was I worked on almost all the Naked Gun movies, and Leslie was just a great guy, and he always had this little fart thing that you squeeze and made the fart noise, so he was constantly doing that. And, it was those are the projects that I really cherish, is working with the iconic people that. They were just, Leslie was always nice, and they were always just great people to be with. So,
Mike, as impressive as your IMDb page is, it's woefully missing things. Like it's unrepresented, because you're telling us things you've worked on that are not listed here. And I believe you, trust me, that's not a question of belief. It's just that someone needs to update this shit for you, because there's some stuff on here that you're telling us it should be listed, and it's not.
Yeah, I'm actually thinking about taking stuff off, because I don't want to be, well, this guy's been working in the business since, my first camera job, and this is just a fucking story that always again, it's one of those things where somebody asks you if you want to do something and you go and do it. But
Sure.
my first camera job was the only film that was written and directed by Harvey and Bob Weinstein. And it was called Playing for Keeps.
Yeah, I see that.
The director of photography was a guy named Eric Van Haren-Noman, who was a very dear friend of my father's. And my dad and Eric had worked on this movie, Days of Heaven. I don't know if you know that film, but it won Academy Award for Best Cinematography. But my dad had saved Eric's life on that film. And there's this whole part where the wheat fields are burning, and Eric was a Steadicam operator, and he fell down. My dad was guiding him, and he tripped, and these wheat fields were on fire and knocked himself out. My dad carried him out of the fire. But anyway, all that being said, Eric got this movie with Harvey and Bob Weinstein, who were nobody at the time. They were rock promoters out of Buffalo. And my dad was going to do it. He said, "Hey, you want to do this thing and learn how to be a camera guy?" And I go, "Yeah, for sure. We're Pennsylvania for 3 months." I said, "Okay, great. Let's go." So I went there, and, Harvey and Bob Weinstein every day. I mean, who knew what they were going to become?
Sure.
We more or less sort of laughed
Or what
at
they
them
were
most of the
doing.
time. Or what, I'm sure one of the actresses on the show I was friends with, and it was Marissa Tomei's first film, but that wasn't the actress. But I had actually talked to the other lead actress on Facebook, and we had a little thing back and forth. I said, "Hey, did Harvey ever try it?" She goes, "Yeah, he never got anywhere with me though." But he was this big frumpy guy, this big mustache, and I mean, he looked like a schlub. Him and his brother both looked like schlubs. They still look like schlubs, but obviously became filthy rich and
filthy period.
Beg your pardon?
And filthy period.
Yeah, exactly. But years later, I had a friend of mine who was a private investigator, did some work for Harvey. I can only imagine what it was. And I had a script that I had written that I was like, "Hey, I wonder if I can get Harvey to read this or whatever." And so I talked to my friend. I said, "Hey, you still have Harvey's email or whatever?" And he goes, "Yeah. I'll send him an email saying that you're going to send him something." And I go, "Okay, cool." So I got Harvey's email, and I sent him an email. I said, "Hey, Harvey, it's Mike May, whatever. And he emailed me right back. He goes, "My God Almighty, it's so great to hear from you. How's your dad? How's everything?" And this whole thing. And so I sent him my script. I said, I got the script, and I said, it's kind of like, what's the movie with Christian Slater? That's a famous movie. God damn it, that he
Pump Up
produced.
the Volume?
No, the one that Tarantino did. That's the famous. Oh God, it's escaping me now.
Christian Slater, Heathers?
No. It's the one with Harvey Keitel and God Almighty, which one was it? True Romance. My daughter just yelled at me.
Thank you.
Jesus, I forgot that.
Yeah, Harvey produced that one. So I said it was kind of like True Romance, and he goes, "I already did that movie." And I was like, "Well, fuck, it's not exactly that movie. It's kind of like it." Right. But anyway, that was kind of my last email with him, and the next thing you know, he was getting arrested. So it was kind of like, okay, Harvey, yeah.
And maybe you were better off that he turned it down then. I mean, who knows?
Quite possibly. I mean, that's what it goes back to what I was saying is that, you go into projects, you don't know what the future will hold with the relationships that you make. You don't know what connections are going to happen for you later on. I did this TV show called North Shore back in 2004, and Jason Momoa and I became very good friends. And he was, he was just a co-star on that show, and he was literally living in his Jeep, sleeping at the beach at night because he didn't have a place to stay. We were in Hawaii, and we'd party together and stuff. And he goes, "Dude, do you mind if I crash at your pad?" I'm like, "No, dude, I got a couch." I had an apartment in Waikiki, and he used to sleep on my couch. And we became really good friends on that. We were there for 8 months, and then the show got canceled, and we came back to LA. And I started to go through my divorce, and I kind of lost contact. He called me a few times, "Dude, let's get together." And I was like, I don't feel like. Next thing you know, he's this huge star. And in fact, the guys I was just with just did a movie with him in Pittsburgh, Jimmy Jensen. And he goes, "Yeah, man." Jason's like, "Hey, do you know Mike May?" And I was like, "Yeah, I know Mike May." And so, I'm hoping to connect with him, somewhere. So you never know.
Aquaman's dropping your fucking name. That's legit.
Yeah, well, they're getting ready to do Aquaman 2.
Yeah.
That supposedly was going to start in January, but I don't know what's going to happen. But, it's just, like I said, you're running these circles. You don't know where they're going to go.
Wait, so you're going to work on Aquaman 2?
No, not at the moment. I wouldn't say that it's a completely outside chance that I would never work on it. You never know what's going to happen.
Right.
But Jason's into Harleys. He rides Harleys.
Right.
So we my friend Jimmy Jensen, He's like, yeah, Jason wants to ride. I'm like, well, fuck, dude, let's ride. Call him up. Let's go.
Yeah.
So, you know.
COVID aside, because obviously that we don't know what that's going to lay down the road for any of us, but that, you know, the quarantines aside, what's next on the platter for what's next on the slate for you that you can talk about? I don't want to put you in a bad spot, but what's next for you?
Well, I was up for a movie. I was working on Hawaii Five-0. They do, when they would get behind, they would do double units. So I was doing Hawaii Five-0 and a show in town here called Covenant. That was a really interesting project. It's going to be it's an Amazon show that was about the first Black family to move into basically South Central in the 50s, I believe. And basically the racism that came with that and what they had to endure.
They're actually advertising for that already. Like, I don't know if it's... Yeah. I've seen commercials.
It's a really dark project that I think will now, because of everything that's happened, people will really want to see it. But we shot some really just things that I really don't want to relive, to be honest with you. But we didn't finish it. We were shooting. It was March 13th. It was Friday the 13th. We were shooting in a theater in downtown LA. And I got to work, and they said, all right, the people from Amazon are coming down to talk to us. And we're like, oh, okay. We had this big meeting in the middle of the theater, and they go, okay, well, because of this COVID, we're pulling the plug. We'll let you know when it's all good and we can come back. So that never got finished. There's a chance I could go back and finish that. I was supposed to do a movie with one of the DPs from Hawaii Five-0. And then one of the Jensens, not the guys I was riding with today, but Jason Jensen, who's related to them. I did some reshoots on this Vin Diesel movie called Bloodshot that it just came out recently.
Yep.
And the DP from that had a movie that I was supposed to do with him. So frankly, I really don't know. The biggest problem with the COVID thing right now is, as much as like our governor's already said, oh yeah, we're gonna go back to work July 12th or whatever. The problem is that the bond companies that back up the money for all these projects, they're not going to do that. They're insurance companies.
Sure.
And until we know for sure that people aren't going to, actors aren't going to get it from the crew aren't going to get it from the actors or producers or directors. Because once that happens, then there's a liability factor where, we're going to sue you. You got me COVID and all that kind of stuff. Until that gets ironed out and there's specific guidelines that everyone accepts, which I say everyone, meaning the actors, the producers, the unions that represent all the crafts. Once everyone agrees on that, then we're going to be able to go. I know that there is a lot of production offices that are opening up. It's just a matter of what those guidelines are with the COVID and how we move forward from there.
Yeah,
and that's really the best way I can describe it.
Yeah, we know some people that also work in the industry who have actually said to us that they think they're really curious what there's going to be to watch next year, because it's going to take so long for all those things that you're talking about to get ironed out.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And then they weren't just talking movies. They were even talking like TV, like there may be a lull where there's just nothing, like.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, it's also going to I think the town's going to be on fire. When I say town, I mean all of the filmmaking industry across frankly, the world, because so much stuff is shot in London and everything else. And so what's going to happen is that because there's such little original content that's been done, there's going to be a big push to get stuff done that was in the middle of filming. And then all these projects that have been sitting on a shelf waiting to go. So, I got to tell you, it's been a really, really tumultuous time. To really not know what is going to happen.
Sure.
And, I'm 5 years, I could retire basically, but I still enjoy what I'm doing. I still get off on doing great shots. I still get off on, shooting something that's beautiful. And, I still love the camaraderie with everyone. And I'm not a jaded filmmaker yet.
I think the documentary with OC kind of shows that. I think it's proof that you love what you do, and that's great. That is kind of a rarity in the industry, because we do have a friend who is, our friend still has that enthusiasm, but he also can, he's had bad days as well. Like we've kind of, he's never explicitly told us, but he's like, he's more impressed of how they can make a whole city. He's like, we're kind of like a fucking army. We could build a city and take it out and have it be ready by lunch, and have the food ready.
Road show.
Yeah,
it's a traveling road show.
Yeah,
that's the crazy thing is that, you show up, whether you're on location or just here in LA, it's like, all right, yeah, we're making a location, but I used to do, this TV show Bosch. I don't know if you guys have checked that out.
Yeah.
It's on Amazon.
Yeah.
And literally we'd be in downtown LA and then we'd make a location move at 3 or 4 o'clock to 30, 40 miles away. So, you're literally talking maybe, between the trucks that have all the equipment and catering and everything else, you're talking maybe 15 trucks.
Right.
And then you're mobilizing, 100 people. And sometimes we drive our own cars. Sometimes you get in a van and, boom, you go to this other location, you get there, everything's been whenever you start a project, you scout it first. So,
sure.
You go and you look at locations, you figure out where the equipment's going to go. If you're lighting, where you're going to put the lights and how you're going to stage a shot and things like that. So when you do come in, you're not completely, going, oh my God. Even still, there's plenty of people that you work with when you go through all the scout and everything else that you get there and the director goes, nah, I think I want to shoot this direction. And there's a couple of people that are notorious for doing that. And really from my position, as a director of photography, you have to be able to be malleable with that kind of stuff and make those, all right, fine. If we're not going to do that, then, it's a weird thing after doing it for so long, wherever I go, whatever I do, I almost look at it from a filmmaker's standpoint. Where's the most optimum place to stand that I can see everything? Where's the most optimum? And even with doing Anthony's thing, and I told Anthony this, OC, I said, I didn't do anything on his project that I wouldn't do on a normal project, other than the fact that I'm shooting it on an iPhone and I'm doing it very spontaneously. But my approach to it is the same way. What is the most optimum spot? What is the most interesting angle that I'm going to get from this? What's going to help me in telling the story? So that's really, those are key elements to the process that you're going to apply, whether you're doing a $200 million film or something that I've done for free with OC.
Sure.
Right. Well, I do have a couple more things, and I think we probably get ready to wrap it up a little bit because we want you to come back. We don't want you to blow your wad with us on one episode.
Yeah. I'd
love to.
If I could propose the idea, Enrico, I think you'd be on board for this, is that after the film festival, to have you and OC back together to discuss the experience of the festival would be. Absolutely. I mean, we'd love to have you above and beyond anything with him, but definitely to discuss that experience as well. But Rico, it sounds like you had some things you wanted to ask him, so go for it.
Well, I just kind of forgot my fucking.
Sorry,
question,
buddy.
But that's all right.
I got my dog here that was.
Oh wow!
Hi, Bugs. You okay?
Here, you want to see my cat?
Yeah.
Here's
He
Dino.
tends to go after animals on video, so.
There you go.
Oh, look at him.
It's Dino after Dean Martin. So if you want to talk
of course.
about it, you can tell Seth that I'm probably a bigger fan.
I don't know, man. I don't know. I've seen Seth interviewed enough that I think that's a back and forth battle there. That's all I'm saying.
If I'm honest, I think I do a better Dean Martin than he does. I mean, his is very good, but I think mine's better.
Well, of course you do.
Showdown.
I would.
That'd be great.
I would love to have a showdown between him and Seth. I seriously would just sit back and watch because that would be crazy. But yeah, Rico. Unless you remembered your question, I think maybe we just let Mike have his night back.
Ultimately, obviously, thank you for coming on.
Yes, thank you, Mike.
But, no, fuck. I know I'm going to remember it in the middle of the fucking night. I'm going to look at, I had your IMDb. Oh, here it was. What the fuck was it like to work on at least 2 Schwarzenegger films, End of Days and T3?
Oh God. Well,
as brief as possible, because End of Days for me is a really underrated fucking Schwarzenegger film.
It's, I have a strange history with End of Days, but I'll be real quick. Terminator 3 was Arnold wasn't there. I only did a couple of days, and it was really when he was hanging off the crane, smashing through shit, and so that's really what I did on T3. But it was big enough to where I felt that it was important enough to put on my resume. But,
sure, yeah.
But
you did a crane shot.
Yeah, End of Days was Peter Hyams directed that, and my
Right.
father did, I think, 5 or 6 films with Peter Hyams. So that was the first film that my dad didn't do with Peter Hyams. And by chance, I didn't do all of End of Days. I came in, maybe worked on it like a month or something. But it was crazy because I was actually working on the X-Files during the week and working on End of Days on the weekend.
So you're just getting double.
Yeah, so I literally, I remember I was working on X-Files. We wrapped at 2:30 in the morning. I rented a hotel. I slept for like 2 hours, and I had to be downtown LA at 5 o'clock. And literally, we were doing this chase scene in downtown LA with Arnold, with Hueys flying fucking, right above our heads and everything else. And it was a crazy thing. But the funniest thing was, we were shooting the part where, this is later on, where Gabriel Byrne gets basically run over by the train and he's in pieces, if you remember that. And I was doing this crane shot, and it was filmed, so the video taps on the camera weren't as good as they are now. It was very dark. And Peter Hyams was a DP and the director, which the films I did with him in the past, I did Presidio, I did Running Scared, I did he produced a film called Monster Squad that my cousin was a director of photography on. So Peter liked to shoot really dark. And so I was shooting that scene with the body parts all over the ground, and I was going from body part to body part until I got to Gabriel Byrne. And Arnold was over my shoulder, and he was like, "Why is the video so dark?" And I said, "Well, Arnold, there's just not a lot of light out there." And he goes, "I know, but why is the video so dark?" And I was like, "There's not a lot of light. I'm not getting anywhere." So seeing Arnold run down the middle of the street when you're looking through like a 600 millimeter lens, or like hanging off a helicopter and stuff, was really fucking cool, because I think he's probably one of our greatest action stars. He's like the first action star that you watch and you go, I can believe this guy kicks ass, because he's only like 6'1", 6'2", but he's just a badass looking dude, and you go, that guy can kick ass.
Yeah, you're like, he doesn't even have to talk. He could just because when he does, you're like, I don't even know what the fuck he's saying, but I know he kicks ass. Like, why is there no light? You have to blow him out. Yeah.
Did you just ask the question so you could do your Arnold impression? Really? Is that what that was?
No.
Okay.
It's pretty good, though, I gotta say.
It is pretty good, yeah.
Oh, yeah, there you
go. But yeah, that was, and Peter Hyams, God bless him, he did one of the eulogies at my dad's funeral. And, whenever my dad did a film with Peter, he would always send him a leather-bound book of the script with pictures of the film inside it. He did 2010, the sequel to 2001 with him, and he'd always write a little note and just how much he loved my dad and how much he meant to him. And when I asked him to do my dad's eulogy, he said, "Mikey, of course I will." He called me Mikey, and his son's a director now. His son John Hyams is a director, and I haven't had a chance to work with him yet, but we talk once in a while on Facebook. So,
who would you want? Who's your living or dead? Who would you want to work with? Who's that holy grail of filmmakers you would have just?
I'd love to work with the Coen brothers. But it's hard because even though they didn't use Deakins on their last film, Deakins does his own operating, and so there was really no place for me, but other than Steadicam. But I'd love to work with the Coen brothers, and I worked with Jeff Bridges. I know Bo Bridges very well. I know Bo's son, two of his sons very well. And Bo, I did a TV show with Bo years ago called The Agency, and he's such a great human being. He gave me his house in Kauai for 2 months. I was going to rent. Not 2 months, 2 weeks, I should say. I was going to rent a house there for my family when the season was over, and I knew he had a house in Kauai. And I said, "Hey, Bo, what do you think of this town? I'm going to rent a house." And he goes, "Why do you want to do that?" And I go, "Well, I want to take my family over." He goes, "Just use my house. Here, call Wendy, tell her the time you want. You got to stay for a couple weeks, otherwise." I was like, "Well, okay." I couldn't say no, and so we stayed at Bo's house. He goes, "You're gonna love it. It's a pot farm that got confiscated. It's on 8 acres.
Holy shit!"
It was beautiful. It was great. And his son Jordan, I did a TV show called Rizzoli and Isles with.
Yeah. Right.
And so Jordan played Angie Harmon's brother, and Angie Harmon and I are good friends for many years. And so it's just like I said, the circles that you run in, and how they overlap. It's just crazy how it happens. So.
All right, I do remember my actual question. So you have some horror movie things on your filmography.
Oh,
you worked on
no.
Yes.
Yeah. So
no, don't, Rico, don't do this.
Yeah, of course I have to. This is a thing. So, I usually ask the guests, especially if they're new, what is their take on the original film Halloween from 1978? And the reason why is because I love it.
Let him answer the question first, and then we'll explain it.
What's your take on Halloween?
I'm frankly not a big horror fan.
Yeah.
But I appreciate the genre. Mm-hmm. And I actually did a short that was a horror film, that it's a whole different story. But, John Carpenter directed that.
Yeah.
And, John Carpenter, he understands horror and he understands suspense. And, Jamie Lee Curtis is great. I worked with Jamie a couple times. She's a sweetheart. So I just look at it. It's not something that I go, that's one of my go-to movies. Let's put it that way.
Okay, the best way of speeding across that question.
The background on this is our Halloween episode 2 years ago. We decided that since I've never seen Halloween, I'm like you, Mike. I'm not a horror fan. I'm just not my thing. I've watched things like the X-Files, but horror movies themselves just not my bag. So the new Halloween had just come out. The remake they did,
right?
And
so sequel.
Or sequel, sorry. And Rico went to see it, and I went and watched the original one, and then we were going to come together and compare notes. And we turn on the mics, we crack the mic, start the recording, and he's like, so what'd you think? And I was like, I hated it. It was the stupidest thing I'd ever seen. And it drives him nuts to this day that I did not like that movie. And I still don't like it. I think it was stupid.
So I'm just trying to get I'm not even keeping count. I'm just trying to get a tally of people that think that he's a douche nozzle for not liking that movie. Because the ultimate irony is that we was going to be like, let's hear your take, let's hear my take about the new movie as you talk about the old movie, and it just became a long fucking argument about
really
why he didn't like the fucking original film.
Well, I you know what, and this is a good way for me to button it up, is I relate it back to OC. When he talks about art and what it means to everyone individually. And no matter how you slice, pardon the pun, a horror movie, it's still art and it's still interpreted, whoever sees it, they're going to have their own interpretation of it. And I mean, the greatest horror movie that I've ever seen that still scares the shit out of me is The Exorcist. I mean, it ruined me, from a little kid when I remember lying in bed and the commercials would come on. And because I went to a Catholic kindergarten, grade school, and high school, and I was terrified of the devil. Whenever I heard that fucking commercial, I was shaking in my bed. And, even over the years, I've worked with Billy Friedkin a couple times. And, like being an old man that I am, there's still parts of that movie that scare the shit out of me. So
yeah, but you've also been working on movies about the devil a lot. So
yeah. And I mean, Jeepers Creepers was, that was it was a fun movie to do. And there was a lot of great scary elements in it. And it's just fun. I mean, look, what's more fun than scaring somebody? I used to scare my kids all the time. Now they return the favor all the time. But, there's nothing funnier than scaring somebody and seeing them freak out,
Well,
but all you have to do now is just turn on the fucking news.
Well, that's true. But anyway, to your point though, Mike, because I think it's a good way to wrap it up. And for once, Rico, I'm taking the last word here. OC didn't like Halloween either. CJ here with a few thank yous and let you know how you can get in touch with and follow the show and us. Listen to us on the Apple Podcast app, Spotify, Stitcher, or anywhere else you find your podcasts. Please don't forget to rate and comment. PodAskew is a member of the Big Heads Media Podcast Network. Visit their website, bigheadsmedia.com, and follow them on Twitter at BigHeadsMedia. If you want to agree with or yell at us, follow Rico, me, and the show on Twitter. The show is at PodAskew, Rico is at Rants Rico, and I'm at M_Blade. We want to thank logo designer and show friend Mike for his work on our wonderful logo. You can contact him for artwork via email at logomike80@gmail.com. That's logomike80@gmail.com. Thank you to Samuel Lemons for all original music on the show, especially our theme music. You can find Sam on Twitter at Samuel Lemons, all one word, and his music on SoundCloud at soundcloud.com/Samuel-Lemons. Finally, our biggest thank you is to you, everyone, for listening. Rico and I really appreciate your time and look forward to bringing you another episode soon.
Me, Mike May, a filmmaker from Los Angeles, and at that moment unemployed.
Damn it!
PodAskew.